right, so welcome. Thank y'all for coming this evening. Really happy to see a good crowd of people this evening for our combined Community Advisory Committee, our CCAC. I do want to introduce, of course, Dr. Ely. He's been walking around. I saw you walk around and shaking hands and meeting all community members. And then we'll start with the video, and then we'll get rolling into our presentation. So, Dr. Ely.
I know you don't need this to hear me, but this is for the folks. We are live streaming this right now, so I want to make sure that folks watching at home can be able to hear what we're saying and for when we record it. Hi, everyone. My name is Clark. I'm the new superintendent at College Station ISD. If I haven't, I think I've made my way over to everybody and shaking everybody's hand. Did I say College Station ISD? Everybody there in TV land. I'm the former superintendent of College Station ISD. I am the new superintendent of Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City ISD, and proud to be a member of this district. Thank you for wrinkling your nose at me, so I knew I'd made a mistake. So I had been in my former district 20 years, so it does kind of roll off the tongue. So I look forward to many decades here as well. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I just want to thank everybody in the room for your commitment, your dedication to helping us as a school district grow and evolve and get even better. I know you are accustomed to seeing a lot of data, and you will see that tonight. We're excited that our demographers from SDS are here to talk about some of the growth that we're seeing and some of those patterns. We'll give you some more information regarding budget and financials, talk a little bit also about some teaching and learning and some things that we are very proud of here in SCUCISD. But I just wanted to go ahead and welcome everyone. And thank you for being here and looking forward to what we learn. Not only that, but the feedback that we'll get, and we'll talk about that process here on your table here in just a little bit. So again, thank you for being here, and I am turning it over to the video.
Thank you, Dr. Ely. Okay, so we're going to start off with one of our videos that we have produced this year. If you haven't seen it, you're in for a treat. If you have seen it, it's always good again.
A collection of communities bound together by an unrelenting commitment to prepare students for the 20th century. Now this integrated compilation of excellence makes up the Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City Independent School District, a small town feel, a world-class opportunity. Built upon the belief that all students have the capacity to learn and be successful, we have embraced a 21st century education where all graduates will be college ready, career ready, and military ready. We are a community that weaves together educators, families, neighbors, and community partners throughout the 73 square miles that encompass our district. Small town feel with a worldwide perspective. Excellence is achieved through a daily commitment to learn and improve. We set the bar high, living according to our core values embedded in our community since it was founded in a one-room schoolhouse. Leadership, by setting the bar high through example and service. Character, living according to timeless principles that served our founders throughout the 19th and 20th century. Commitment, to every child, every day, from the first lessons on the first day until the last day, in a cap and gown and beyond. Service, working for the greater good, providing opportunities, assisting in the acquisition of knowledge and life skills. Learning, inspiring individual achievements, group success, and a lifelong journey of empowerment. A small town feel, a world-class opportunity. This small town atmosphere belies a fierce passion where every student has a place at the table to aspire to greatness, fulfilling lifelong potential through inspiring learning experiences. At SCUCISD, dreams are planted, greatness is cultivated, barriers are overcome, at an amazing place where every student is allowed to explore everything and become anything. Doctor, engineer, educator, craftsman, entrepreneur, service member. What is taught and learned here today changes the world tomorrow. Dynamic leaders, self-motivated, skilled communicators, service-oriented, future ready. We believe all students have the capacity to learn and excel, and the measures of our success go beyond standardized testing. Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City ISD, small town feel, world-class education.
Okay, so I'm going to walk us through awesome video, love it. Walk us through just a little bit of the logistics of the evening to kind of let you know what you're going to hear this evening. So I believe there should be agendas at all tables. If you don't have one, we can get you one, but we put them up on the tables. So welcome to introduction, state of the district. Dr. David Edwards will come up, and Mr. Wayne Brusky will come up and kind of talk to us about the state of the district. Then after that, you'll hear from our demographer, Brent Alexander, and Mr. Francisco Perez.
On our demographics. After that, we'll roll into our 10-year facility master plan, which I'll discuss with you. And then we'll wrap things up with some of our feedback. I know Dr. Ely mentioned that a while ago, that tonight is as much about providing information during the community advisory as it is about from our group here. And on the tables, we have the some feedback. Hello. As we go through the presentations, we'll kind of lean forms for you to provide us some feedback, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go. And then we'll take some closing comments. Hopefully, we're out of here in about an hour and a half, and get everybody ready to see the Daytona duels tonight, right? Yeah. Turn left. Turn.
So I also did want to make mention, thank you for our board members that are here this evening. I know we have Mr. Finley, Mr. Pilato, and I saw Ms. Seaver as well. Ms. Seaver's over here, so thank you for coming. I know we've got some members of our city staff here as well, and lots of communities. So again, thank y'all for coming.
Evening.
So with that, Dr. Edwards and Mr. Brusky.
Thank you, Francisco. JD, thank you. So in the video, you saw a lot of what's on what we call our strategic plan, and there's a copy of it up there. I'm going to talk a little bit what's on the left side of that column. Mr. Priest is going to talk a little bit from the business side in the middle, and then we're also going to share the others. What our foundation is our belief statements. That's what drives us. We state that at every board meeting, just about every meeting we have. I know there's a lot of DIC, District Improvement Committee members here. And that's really what drives us, and you heard that throughout that wonderful video. But I do want to bring one to your attention because it really kind of is relevant to where we're here tonight. The last belief statement that's listed, we believe public education is defined by the local community with limited state involvement. And that's why we have you guys here tonight, and that's why we value being able to share things, but also receive feedback on that. It talks a lot about our motto and our mission statement, vision, those kind of things. Also our values on that. So one of the things we're going to talk about in just a few minutes is also the strategic priorities for us. P1, all graduates will be college and or career and or military ready. P2, high performing and engaged workforce. P3, highly satisfied students, parents, and the community. And P4, efficient and district operations. One of the things that was real important in that video is it really emphasized what our traits of a graduate are. As we developed this last strategic plan, really this 18 through 22 strategic plan, one of the things that came out of that is that's great. We want to make it where it doesn't sound like a bumper sticker, and does it really speak to our students? And that's where the traits of a graduate come out. And our students that were in the group when we were developing that strategic plan were instrumental in that process. And so you heard those traits listed throughout that presentation. And that's something that we really work through, and that's a driving force for as well. We'll come back and talk about priority 1, 2, 3, and 4 in just a moment. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Mr. Prusky, and he's going to share a little bit of information from the business side.
Good evening. Thank you, sir. This evening, you're going to be seeing, as Mr. Mosley mentioned when he was going over the agenda with you, I'm here to talk a little bit about the high points on the financial side. SCUC's operating budget is about $134 million. All funds in, including all funds from federal and other funds that come in, we're talking about $170 million. So as we proceed through these, budget, 85% of it it goes towards staffing. So you have the staff here to provide the support for priority 1, and priority 4 being effective and efficient district operations. We pride ourselves as being as lean as we can and always looking for other ways and other opportunities present for us. A little bit later, you'll be getting this packet. I'm a former teacher, and I didn't want to hand it out, and everybody's going to be looking at it while not listening to me. I remember those days. So with that being said, I'm just going to talk big picture here. So SCUC, for our staff, we have over 1,900 staff. And of those, 1,000 of them, 1,034 to be exact, are teachers. So with the support staff and the makeup there of non-campus professionals, auxiliary, and paraprofessionals, that makes up close to 2,000 staff members. As I mentioned, the budget, we have our revenue sources, and our tax rate, due to recent legislation, our tax rate has gone down, was compressed due to legislative action there. So you'll see that on this chart of going from $1.49 to $1.42, and that'll be reflected in this document as well. Some of the points of pride on the financial side, though, I'm going to jump to that real quick. Our bond ratings, Moody and Fitch bond rating services have us this is hard for me, AAA, AAA3. So that's combined in there. That's pretty good for a school district. And what does that measure? That measures our financial strength. So in the bond ratings, we have those ratings. For every tool in the toolbox, looking at our bonding capacity and what we do, we look at refinancing our bonds. Throughout the years, we've been able to save money by taking advantage of interest rates and putting those forward. So in moving through there, then, we've had 2 bond elections, recent bond elections, 2013, which was $92 million, and 2016, which was $137 million. And I'm happy to say the projects on those bonds came in on time and under budget. So we have those moving forward, and we're closing up the 2016 bond and looking to the future, which is what tonight's about. So moving there from that aspect of it, then, we also want to give a little shout out to our Education Foundation, who since the 2008 has given over $300,000 back to our campuses and to our students. So with that being said, I'm going to hand this back over. A bit before I do that, I'm sorry. A big takeaway for SCUC, and I don't know if it's widely known, so I'm going to share it real quick. Our tax base in SCUC is basically 76% residential, 16% commercial, and then 6% classified as other, rural land, et cetera, stuff to that effect. So again, 76% residential and 16% commercial. So those of us who are here, we've seen this, a lot of rooftops. So the funding, the backbone falls on our taxpayers, and we want to be good stewards of those the monies from those taxpayers, not only today, but moving forward. So we're always looking for that value for everybody in the community, our stakeholders, and in our district. So, sorry. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Wayne. Appreciate that. So you can see kind of how our district is funded and operates and those kind of things. One of the things we wanted to also talk about are just kind of some things that we wanted to share with you related to our students and our staff and our community. We had about 1,300 students graduate last year from high school. That's about a 96% completion rate or graduation rate. That's a very high in the state, and we're very proud of that. But if you go back to P1, it was to ensure that they're college and or career and or military ready. So how do you know that? They graduated great, but how do we know they're ready for that next journey, that next part of life? So here's some things we just wanted to share with you along those lines. So our students last year were awarded over $40 million in scholarships. That may be multiple scholarships for the same kid, but $40 million. Our 1,300 graduates were awarded that. We had almost 12,000 college credits earned. 12,000 college credits. If you've sent a kid to college lately, you know parents save a lot of money with that right there, and we're very proud of that. That's the college ready for that. In our CTE program, our students earned almost 1,500 CTE certifications during the 18-19 school year, career ready. when we look at that. And also some of our points of pride, it's also about the whole child. Our extracurricular programs, both athletics and fine arts, are noted in their achievements as that as well. So we're very proud of all those things. We are preparing students to be college, to be career, to be military ready in that. When we look at our engaged workforce, for the 6th year in a row, we were recognized in the greater San Antonio area as a top workplace, 6 years in a row. We're planning on keeping that streak going. So when you look at that, our teacher retention rate is 91%. Again, very high when we compare across the state. And we continue to work on that. Great teachers in the classroom help our kids learn and achieve priority 1. And then the last thing is also when we talk about the community, we are launching a community survey. Many of you have had the opportunity to help us kind of get that going, and that'll launch this spring. But also looking at our parent satisfaction rate is about 81%. That's a very good rate on that. We're continuing to work on that. And our student satisfaction rate was about 73%, and that continues to go up. So those are things that we're also working in priority 3 as well that are very important to us. And Wayne mentioned, I was also going to talk about the partnership with our Education Foundation. Several members in here are also a part of that, that provides opportunities for extra incentives for teachers in the classroom that results in opportunities for greater learning for our students. So I wanted to make sure that I hit that too. But you can see when we talk about priority 1, 2, 3, and 4, we live it and we learn from it. And that's part of this community feedback, and that's part of the continuous improvement model that we have set forth in the district. So thank you guys for being here tonight and providing us some feedback, some opportunities for growth. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you or JD.
One more. Okay. Guys, if y'all can, now you can pass these packets out. Because I didn't go over all of it. I just wanted to hit those high points on that first part. So the package you'll be receiving, it's an overview. You'll see some of the information that I just spoke about with our budget, with our staffing, our district makeup, commercial and res. You'll see that as well. Staffing costs shown as a trend. But then when we get to, there's a table back, the staffing summary. That's where the staff is assigned, allotted to, spread across the district. But then on the next page, it's got a yellow band. Another thing that we are very proud of here at SCUC, which makes us a destination district, is the salary. The teacher salary comparison chart is what it's titled. It's about page, it's probably the last page actually, before you turn over. And highlighted in yellow shows the progression of SCUC and our pay schedules. So you'll see our starting for first year pay over 50,000 and then proceeding it on to there. I'm not going to read it for the sake of time, but there's the comparison, and you can see our comparisons with our districts, our neighboring districts around there. So this makes us desirable, but we also choose what we feel is the best for our kids. So on that side. Last but not least, there's the last page is with House Bill 3. I know there's some talk about it, but there's an overview there for the pre-kindergarten plan for SCUC, and this is just a fishbone of it. So this year, SCUC to apply for the pre-K waiver while we look to start implementing the pre-K at 2 campuses next school year. And then you'll see it through there. Then we'll also do for 3 more and 3 more. And we are looking forward and we are looking forward to doing this and looking at options available to the district. So there's the mini packet. There's the short little speech to there. Again, thank y'all for being here tonight. And I'm going to turn this now to Mr. Mosley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prisky there. And so talked about feedback a little bit ago. And so if you will look in the middle of your table, there's what we call SWOT forms. And there is a SWOT that says State of the District. And so, again, we'll do this 3 times this evening. And so what we'd like you to do is the SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. And so if you would, in our cabinet members, there's 1 page per table. So there's 1 State of the District SWOT for the table. So if you'll talk as a table and what are the strengths of what you heard, and as a table, write down some strengths for us. What are some of the weaknesses possibly that you heard? and write those down for us. And then opportunities are things like, have you thought about this? Okay, and so that's what we want to kind of hear on those opportunities. And the threat is, if you don't do something here, you may have trouble, right? Okay, so that's what we're looking for threats. And so if you'll fill out that SWOT form, we'll give you, we've got in about 5-10 minutes to do that. We would appreciate it. Thank you.
Ready? Okay, looks like you can please finish up. And as we get ready for the next part of the meeting, my name is Francisco Perez. I'm the Director of Transportation and Demographic Services. Here in a second, you're going to hear from Brent Alexander, our demographer. Of course, for us, it is vital that we have, and we know what's going on throughout the district. We have good information to make sure we're meeting current needs and as well as long-term planning. Brent is going to share a lot of information today. If you don't mind, again, make sure we use the feedback form. You're going to have 10 minutes after the presentation. Also, if you have any questions, just please, if you don't mind, hang on to those questions until the end, okay? Because there's going to be a lot of data, a lot of information, okay? Brent?
Thank you, Francisco. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone again. Hard to believe another year has gone by. So tonight I have our 2019-20 school year demographics update to go through. Like Francisco said, we have quite a bit to cover, so let's get after it. All right, so each fall we get updated population numbers from our national data source. So what you see here are the totals for the state of Texas and the San Antonio, New Braunfels MSA there on the bottom chart in blue. The key thing here is that over these last 9 years, the rate of growth in Texas has surpassed the decennial record number that we saw from 2000 to 2010. We've seen all 4 of the major Texas markets see record growth. So San Antonio today, okay, can you hear me better now? San Antonio is at just above 2.5 million people and growing towards 2.75 million people by 2024. Here are the totals for the district. So in 2019, there were a little more than 79,000 residents that live in the district boundary. The total number of households is now over 27,000. If you look compared to the numbers for last year, we've seen another year of 2.7% to 3% year-over-year growth. If you look back 3 years, the district has seen the population climb by over 7,700 people and almost 2,600 total households. Now compare that to the rate of growth for the annual snapshot dates here for the district. Note that the 15,925 is the October 25th official number for the 1920 school year. That is record enrollment. Over the last 10 years, the district has seen a net increase of over 4,200 students. We've talked about that, over these last several years, each time we've held this meeting. So, but one of the things that's been interesting is these last several years is to watch that rate of growth flatten out. So you can see that, like what we're still seeing in the overall population growth numbers that are up around 3%, the year-over-year numbers for the district were at that level until about the 15-16 school year. And you see these last 3 years, 3 consecutive years of year-over-year growth at 1%. So that's one of the major questions that we're going to talk about tonight. What's driving that? Here are the enrollment totals for each attendance level in 2-year increments beginning in 2009. So from 2009 to 19, there's been over 1,400 student growth at the elementary level. High school's grown by over 1,500 students. And in the middle, intermediate, and junior high, we've seen over 1,300 students over the 10-year period. But recently, we've seen a lot of fluctuation. So when you look here, these are your annual grade level totals, and I've highlighted the total, or the highest enrollment for each grade. And you can see with the record growth that we've seen that a lot of the grade levels have experienced their highest total within the last 3 to 4 years. So some of you all have asked questions over these last couple of years, why are we seeing these fluctuations in junior high and intermediate enrollment? And that's when you look, you can see that there was a wave of growth that has now culminated in a record 9th grade class. You can see back in 2017, that record 7th grade class that's now aged up through junior high. And now we're seeing the same thing from a wave of growth that occurred in 2016. You can see those record 1st and 2nd grade classes have now aged up to push intermediate to its highest totals ever here in the district. So this is something that we have to deal with when we're doing our enrollment projections. So we're moving record classes into high school, but following behind that is a drop in enrollment. Then we've got another peak in the intermediate, and followed behind that are lower grade level totals in 1st through 4th grade. And now look at kindergarten. Kindergarten in 19 climbed to an all-time high of 1,048. So one of the reasons that kindergarten is at the highest rate that we've seen is we continue to see the birth rate go up. So remember, the blue line represents the total number of births for the 3 zip codes that generally make up the district boundary. And we move it 5 years forward and compare it to kindergarten enrollment, which is the green line. So what we've seen is a steady increase since 1995, about 1,128 births per year over these last 5 years. The latest data we have is through 2015. So you can see the district is seeing that annual birth rate begin to flatten out a little bit, but we're still looking at this year and next year being at the highest at record levels, right around 1,060 total kindergartners projected for next year. So with the birth rate not declining, you've seen kindergarten at record levels, you've seen intermediate at record levels. What has happened in those lower grades these last couple of years to make the district's record growth population-wise not have as big impact here on enrollment? Well, that is related to is related to the expansion of charter schools in the greater San Antonio region since 2015. The one report that we have that gives us insight into what is going on is the TEA's transfer report. So what you see here, represented by the orange bars, are students that are attending other school districts or charter schools but live in SCUCISD. So you can see very consistent numbers from 2011 through 2014, but since the 2014-15 school year, also want to mention that this data is still trailing a year, so we get it every March to May from the state. So what you see here is for last year, 18-19, there were 1,079 students that live in the district but are attending elsewhere. But you can see how that number's climbed, almost 432 students over these last few years. And that's really what has impacted enrollment and caused it to slow down. We can come back to the charter situation in a minute during the question portion in our enrollment projections, but let's go through some more of the demographic characteristics of the students. Again, when you see these next few slides, they're going to be trailing a year. What you see here are the race and ethnic numbers for the district. Note that we continue to see the Hispanic Latino portion of the district, or of enrolled student population, that proportion continuing to climb. But note, there's a comparison slide in here, but I'm going to move forward to the economically disadvantaged numbers. Note that as we've seen the district's racial makeup change, we have not seen a dramatic change in the socioeconomic status of the district. Look back to 2005, about 24% of the students in the district were on the free and reduced lunch program. In 18-19, it did climb a little bit at 29%. The preliminary number that I have for the 19-20 school year is right at 29%. So we have seen a change in the racial and ethnic distribution of the students, but we're not seeing that dramatic change in economically disadvantaged students. All right, here's our fun slide that we do every year. This was our original geocoding in 2012, and these are the geocodings in 2019. So you can see, I'll toggle back and forth. Here's where we were back 7 years ago, and now you can see all the students, especially focus in on around Cibolo Valley Elementary. Look at all the growth in the 1103 corridor. Look at the growth around Sipple. You can see the growth around Rose Garden, the new Rose Garden campus, down 15-18. And now look at the new growth that we're seeing south of 10 in the St. Higwood area. We're going to talk about that a little bit more coming up. So 98% of the students live within the district boundary. That's the same percentage that we've seen over these last several years. Here are the totals for enrolled students by our planning areas. Note that the darkest areas are the most densely populated areas. We are continuing to see that area that's in the north and northwest portion of the district be the most densely populated. But I think it's fascinating I've been wanting to show this to you for a couple of weeks now, but once I started, we've been watching this chart for years. Remember how the population was distributed over 60% in the Corbett-Clemens zone, and the Steele zone has gradually grown to where it's equal in size, even though the geography is much smaller. This year, it's a 50-50 mix. So think about this. You saw the chart where the district has grown by roughly 2,400 students since 2012. The net growth, 85% of it has occurred in the Dobie-Steele attendance zone. So that is pretty amazing. And the reason is because that area, although it's still one of the most densely populated areas of the district, the northwest, has been the area that's been declining. And that's reflected here. This really tells the story about why we've seen 1% year-over-year growth, because the area in red in the district continues to see fewer students. Now, Francisco and I and the administration have looked into these numbers over these last several years, and we continue to see a mixture of people that have moved away, people that have aged in place, their kids have gone through and graduated, as well as the kids have just simply left. So that is, when you look at that map, all of the major areas of new housing growth are continuing to produce student growth, all in green. The 1103 corridor, the 1518 corridor. Even see Kensington Ranch up on 1518 up there in the northwest. Even that area has grown dramatically with the new construction that occurred over these last 10 years. But it's the existing areas that have some of the older homes where we have seen the net decline. All right, moving on to the growth drivers. It's been a great fourth quarter for Texas. All the major markets had great employment numbers come out in November and December. San Antonio has climbed to the highest at 34,000 year-over-year jobs that it's seen in about 3 to 4 years. The unemployment rate as of December, 2.8, incredible. So then we've seen growth across all industries. So all of these are in the report, so you can look at them in more detail later, but we've seen the growth across all industries. It actually fluctuated the last couple of years, but the main driver of the housing growth, it's energized the market, is the rate dropping back to around 3.5%. We've seen that boost the market since about October of last year, and most of the builders are reporting phenomenal fourth quarters and great starts to 2020. In fact, overall, the new home market in San Antonio has climbed over 14,000 starts for the first time since 2007. So another shift, though, that's taking place here in the market is that what's growing is the 200 to 300,000 price point. So we're going to talk about that more coming up. All right, so before we look at the new home numbers, a couple comments on the existing home market here. In the district in 2019, we saw 1,764 total resales. That's up 11%. So I looked at the area that was in red to see if, we're seeing a lot more sales in that area. They actually went down. It was 226 in 18, about 170 in 2019. What we're seeing is that the existing home sales just spread out all across the district. As the new home neighborhoods spread out, we're seeing even some of those that have only been open a few years, we're seeing turnover in those neighborhoods. So the number's growing. We're also seeing the value grow. The existing home sold for a record just under $250,000 in 2019. All right, so these are the new home numbers. Very strong in the fourth quarter. 225 new homes were started. That's the most that we've seen in a fourth quarter since 2015. 172 were moved into. So for the calendar year, there were 833 new homes started and 817 were occupied. So 16% year-over-year growth. We were expecting it to be in the 790s, so just above where we were thinking it would be at this time a year ago. And now, as you can see, the average there in the yellow line at 727 closings per year. It's running a little bit ahead of the average since the current cycle began in 2011. But the developers put another 799 single-family lots on the ground. That's what you see in the green line, and that has invigorated the market again as we see it climbing. So as we look at the way Schertz-Cibolo numbers compare to the other school districts in the region, you can see it's still the 5th largest new home market amongst all the San Antonio school districts. And the majority of the activity continues to be in the city of Cibolo, followed by Schertz, but note the numbers over there on the right-hand side of the chart for the St. Hedwig area that continues to emerge, now up to 215 starts down there south of I-10. These are the top performing neighborhoods. You can see Red River Ranch, most closings in 2019. That's Deer Horton in the Watts Elementary attendance zone. But note, several of the neighborhoods now are doing 60 to 80 homes a year. Those are the ones that I've highlighted. If you combine Mesa and Turning Stone continuing to do over 80 homes a year. And so when you look at the housing data by elementary attendance zone, you can see that Rose Garden, which surpassed Cibolo Valley about a year ago, is still the leading area of activity. But Cibolo Valley and Sipple are right there. So one of the things we'll talk about a little bit more is how each of those areas, how they grow, continues to influence the decision on where the next school sites will go to relieve those campuses. Based on the intermediate zones, the slaughter zone continues to see over 50% of the activity, but the numbers in Jordan are climbing due to the activity along 1518. The high school numbers are interesting. If you look over on the right, I've highlighted 2019 in yellow there. Note that we still see more closings in the Dobie Steel attendance zone, but note that on the left in starts, we're seeing much more balanced activity now as the rate of activity increases along 1518. Now, one of the things that is changing, well, let me back up for a sec. So the top bullet point, 82% of the activity has been in the 250 to 500 price point. That has been what we've seen these last several years. It's more of your first move up, second move up type of home that's being constructed in the district. Well, that is now gradually changing to where we're seeing what is more of that value type of home. It's a mixture of starter homes and move up homes that are in the 200 to 300,000 range. And what you see on the chart there, 222 starts there under 250,000. That's something we haven't seen, that type of house being constructed in the district since Kensington Ranch was really up and running. So that is a change. So we've got new projects that are coming in that price point. So you can see the overall median new home price at $281,000. We should see that begin to stay at that level, or if not, come down just a little bit as we see more starts on the lower end of the price spectrum. And then I believe if you look at the inset table there on the bottom left, that really shows you where the market has been. Just about 300,000 is the median price in most of the cities, but look at the more affordable St. Hedwig area is down in the below 230. All right, so at the end of the year, there were 1,155 lots that were left. There were 1,200 lots that were under development in the development pipeline, but not started yet, are another 8,600. These are the lots that are under development. Note that 900 of them are in the city of Cibolo. Another 232 are in St. Hedwig, and 90 are in the city of Schertz at the moment. Let's look through some pictures real quick. So we talked a lot about the emerging area, the St. Hedwig area. So you can see Abbott Road that runs through the middle of the picture. The new development there on the left, bottom left, that's the East Central, but you can see Heather's Place, Asher Place there along 1518. There are over 2,100 lots planned in the district south of I-10 as of the end of the year. So that is huge. That didn't exist a few years ago. A couple more shots. Halley's Ranch, where Ashton Woods has brought their Starlight starter home product into the district. And then looking same general area, you can see Hunter's Way. And then Lennar has a big project called Sage Meadows that's there under development in the middle of the screen. So we have all the major builders that are coming in south of 10 at the lower price points. Then as you move up 15, 18, we're headed up towards Rose Garden. This is where Halley's Cove, you have higher prices for Highland and Guian. And then the new lots for the Crossvine on the southern side of the neighborhood. Rhine Valley has another phase over on the eastern side of the neighborhood on Lower Seguin. Now, one of the areas that we talked about last year emerging is the FM 78 corridor, where the #1 subdivision has been Red River Ranch. So you can see this is where D.R. Horton is. They finished the first phase. They have another phase there in the center of the picture that are under development. And then also note that the Trophy Oaks apartments are now well into under development, and we should see those coming online here towards the end of the year. Also note on the 78 corridor out, you might not ever make it out that way, but this is right on the eastern edge of the district is Venado Crossing. This is where Pulte and Armadillo are going to be building, and they're going to start in the 190s here. So again, another value-driven price point neighborhood. This one's going to be interesting because there are lots, as you can see, that are split by the district boundary with Marion ISD. And then jumping up to the northeast, let's move back. You can see KB, or you can see the portion of Cypress Point. There is it's winding down. The Homestead is starting to see increased activity. Remember, this neighborhood's been slower than what we initially thought it would do over these last couple of years, but it's now up to 70 starts a year, and the district owns the land right there you see in the center of the picture. But here's a shot looking south on 1103 of all of the homes that have been built there in the 1103 corridor. Starting, you can see Mesa, Turning Stone, and Landmark Point. Note that all that land that you see in the upper left, those are all platted for the next wave as the district will move, or the housing market will move from the eastern edge of the current Cibolo Valley attendant zone into the Sipple attendant zone as it moves to the northeast. Another phase of Foxbrook there in the center, and you can see the final homes being built in Turning Stone. And then as you move further south, there's another phase of Saddle Creek Ranch. And then we're a few duplexes coming in off of Wheel Road. And then here's so D.R. Horton is winding down in Turning Stone, and they still have a little bit of ways to go in Saratoga, but this is one of their new positions. So not only did they have Red River Ranch, they have the huge Steel Creek subdivision that is just on the southwestern side of Steel High School. So you can see the first 300 lots under development there. Also in Buffalo Crossing, this is part of, remember the Kohler-Veazey area that's north of 1103, these are the first phases of that area that we're seeing the lots getting closer to being finished. And then Saratoga, where D.R. Horton has both D.R. Horton brand and Express Homes. And then as you move over to the Schertz Parkway, Wilshire Homes has the Beinsel Farm. And then up along 35, up by the theater and the retail development, we see the Dorado at Cibolo Crossing apartments that have started as well. So you've seen all of the single family. The apartment market is poised to add 658 units with Trophy Oaks and Cibolo Crossing over these next 18 months or so. All right, so the housing market is projected to produce an average of 830 new home closings over the next 5 years. You can see how it's going to require more development to keep that rate of growth up that high, but it is with abundance of vacant land left, it likely will occur in that 6 to 10 year time frame. So we may not see a major trail off. So what are the homes yielding? This past year, the rate has dropped a little bit to 0.71. Now, when you look at the numbers on the left-hand side, those are the numbers for our large housing sample. What I have here in the table are only the subdivisions that have been active for the last, that are currently active. And so you can see that number is, they're about the same this year. Last year, there was a little bit of a difference, but about 0.71 is the standard yield from a new home here in the district. And if you look over to the right, you can see for elementary, that translates into 0.30. So again, the way you read that is you're still seeing about every 3 to 4 houses gives an elementary student. Now the apartment market, the yield has dropped a little bit. This year it's come in at 0.25. We've seen the total number of students that live in our apartment sample. It peaked in 2016 and 17 at a total of 471 students. This year it's dropped to 397. So one thing that's contributed to slower growth is the fact that some of these complexes do not have as many kids as they had a couple years ago that are enrolled in the district. So when you take the housing forecast, all of our yields, you look at all of the enrollment patterns, we are continuing to look at 2 scenarios. The green line is the low scenario. It continues the district on about a 1.1% growth rate. That is the rate that you're going to see in the facility master plan. One of the things to keep in mind is when you look at the blue line, that is if the district keeps the students that it has now and continues to grow based on our housing forecast. But what we're having to factor in is the fact that we've got 3 major charter schools that are coming within the next 2 years in the area. We have the campus for Great Hearts at 1604 in the Live Oak Creek area. We have IDEA has a campus on 1516 south of 10. And we have new announcement of land that's been purchased in New Braunfels at FM 725 to the northeast of the district for our nearly 1,600 student pre-K through 12 campus. So all of those will have an impact. The difficult thing is how much, because I showed Francisco IDEA's area of influence. Well, it's every district in San Antonio. So we have factored that in. So what you are looking at right here are those end results. So we should see, even with the low growth over the next 3 years, just under 500 net student growth. The 5-year rate is just above 900. And at the 10-year rate, we're going to see over 1,600 more students. But it should be faster. It should be more like the blue line, which is really only a 1.7%. You can remember back 3-4 years ago, we were looking at a 2 to 3% line. So what you see here is 1 to 2%. So capacity-wise, they're going to get into it more. What you see here are the low scenario projections based on for each attendance level and compared to the maximum capacities for each attendance level. So we have a housing market that is energized, it's changing, it's still producing a lot of homes here in the district. The yields are still very high in a lot of the neighborhoods. We still see strong numbers in the 1103 corridor and the subdivisions that have been built over these last 5 to 7 years. A lot of the subdivisions that are on the 1518 corridor are yielding more like a 0.5, whereas the others are 0.7 to 0.9. So with all that, we're still expecting enrollment to climb over 17,000 students by 2024, and it could climb to over 18,000 by the 27-28 timeframe. Okay, that is where I'm going to leave off and turn it back over to Francisco. And into the facility master plan. Thank you.
Well, we do have a little bit of time for questions. I don't know if you have any questions for Brent. Yes, sir.
Kids that are doing online school that are living in the district and are technically charter school?
Technically, yes. You have, for example, Hallsville has their virtual academy. I think there's like 30 or 40 kids in that.
I'll use my son as an example.
Okay.
Well, he used to go to Clemens, lived in the district, through TEA, found an online school, and the district is actually in Houston. So I imagine somehow he's counting against their numbers, but he lives here. So would your numbers include those situations?
Yes, in the orange bar, virtual academies are in that number.
Second, you have on the part about apartments, it was about a quarter kid per unit. Was that across the board all grades? So we were trying to.
Yeah, that's the yield for, that's your K through 12 yield.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, homeschooling is one of those things that we don't have any data for. There's, we hear things that it's been increasing, but I can't prove that, and I don't really have a source for those numbers. So it's a difficult one. If yes.
Is there any data yielding apartments or housing price to like elementary versus middle versus high? So like what does an apartment yield to elementary versus what does it yield to high school?
Well, the apartments are interesting today because what we're seeing in the development world is we're seeing the extremes. We're seeing luxury apartments, or we're seeing income assisted apartments. And we're seeing very few of the garden style 1 to 2 or 3 story type of developments. And we're seeing more of the 4, 5 story, what are mid-rise type developments that enclose parking, and those have much lower yields. So when you hear the luxury apartment term, typically the yield drops from 0.1 to 0.2, whereas what I was showing you is an overall. If you were to go back to the slide with the multifamily yields, you would see that even the more traditional apartments are going to give you a 0.3 to 0.4 type range, especially if they have a larger number of 3 bedrooms. So that's the key, is if that type of development has more 2 and 3 bedroom units, you're going to see more of a yield. But it's typically elementary and high school are the highest proportions within the yield, no matter whether you're looking at single family or multifamily.
Thank you again. That's a lot of numbers. Let's take about 10 minutes to fill out the SWOT analysis. Please give us any feedback so that we can always improve. So 10 minutes, we'll come back and remind. Yeah. Make sure you use the demographics SWOT analysis, okay? We got about 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes.
We'll take about one more minute, about one more.
Okay, so hopefully we're finishing up the SWOT analysis for demographics. Thank you for your feedback. One thing I would just mention, keep in mind this presentation will be posted online. Actually, if you go into the facilities and planning website, you see the previous presentations from for each quarter. So if you get a chance to go in and look at that, all that information is posted. So now JD is going to talk about facility master plan and how we take some of these projections and move it on to that.
Thank you, Francisco. But before we jump into the 10-year facility master plan, just want to kind of make mention that the information that you heard with our demographics report, I'm going to talk about facilities, but that is critical information for us in the Human Resources Department. It's critical information for us in the Finance Department. And so those numbers are used throughout our district as we plan, whether it's for personnel or whether it's for budgeting or whether it's for facilities. And so the document that's up on the screen now, and you will get a copy of this in just a little bit, I'm going to kind of walk everyone through what you find on the document, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the specifics that are there. I'm going to start off by saying this is the best plan that we have today. Okay, it is today. All right. You heard a lot of things from Mr. Alexander about how we're growing here and how we're growing there. And then, oh, there's a spot down south that we're growing really fast. We better watch that down there too, right? And so everything in this plan is based on the numbers that we have today and the best plan that we have based on what we're seeing, okay? And so as you're looking at the document, you'll find little blue letters around it, and then we'll start counterclockwise. So at the top right, you'll see an A, and on the back of this document, when you get it, all of these letters correspond with an FAQ part, okay? And so you'll be able to flip it over. Okay, what's that A on there, right? And so the A is really talking about kind of what I just said. This is a draft document, and I think when this document was originally developed, they said draft went on it and it's never come off. Okay, and that's kind of what our commitment to this is that we look at this constantly, and okay, what's it look like? What's it look like this quarter? Brent gives us data quarterly. We look at, okay, where are we at? Where are the changes? Do we need to move something? And so we're constantly reviewing this and constantly just making sure that what we thought we were doing before, is that still what looks the best for us? And so you'll see it says draft. It'll always say draft. You'll also see a date at the top right, and that's just the version that we're on, okay? I can assure you that between the versions that you see get posted to the web, there's probably 4 or 5 versions that you don't see posted to the web, because that's just kind of how we look at this. As you go around, so over there on the right, on the left-hand side of the top, the letter B is just really kind of telling you how the document is organized. So across the top of the document is your years. Okay, those are we look at those as our school years, and then down the left-hand side are your projects. All right, and so whether that's a campus project or whether that is an infrastructure facility kind of project, an ancillary project, those kinds of things. You'll also see that it kind of describes what's the beigeish yellow color, what's the red color. And so the beige color is really when we're beginning design for these different pieces, preparing to do something. And the rose or the reddish looking block is when we would expect to open that facility or be completed with that renovation per se. Down around the middle, the C letter there, you'll see a block on there that says renovations. And so we get questions, what does renovations mean? And so really renovations can mean anything from adding a wing to a campus. It could be interior renovations. It could be additions of CTE type program classrooms and those kinds of things. And so that's what we see in that renovations piece. D, down there at the bottom, I mentioned right when I started that this is based on the numbers we have today, and that's why those numbers are on this document. So at the bottom down there are our enrollment projections. So the numbers that we get from Brent go straight onto this document, so that's how we base this. We don't look down vertically from the school year to what does the enrollment look like, okay? And so we've got the enrollments down that part of the document by grade level, or not, I shouldn't say grade level, but by campus level. So elementary, intermediate, junior high, high school, and then at the very bottom and highlighted in yellow is the total enrollment for the district during that projected enrollment during that school year. The last part is the little letter E, kind of the bottom left, and just kind of talks about the green bars. All right, so you'll see some green bars vertically, and then you see some green bars horizontally at the bottom. So the green bars are where we are projecting today to possibly maybe call a bond election during that year, right? So again, this is our best plan on the data that we have today. So currently what we would be looking at is a bond possibly in May of 23 and possibly another bond in May of 27. The bottom green bars kind of tell you what would possibly be in that bond, okay? A general statement about the document, as we move right on the document, we get less sure, right? Okay, we think we know what's going to happen in the next 3 years pretty confidently, In the next 8 years, that confidence starts going down because of all the kinds of things can happen that we can't, we're doing the best we can to foresee those, but, the confidence goes a little bit down. 10 years out, not real sure. Okay, a good example of that is for those of you that are on the CAC, when this document was being developed and we were looking at going out for bond back in 13, we had discussions of a 10-year bond back then, and then we came back to having 3-year bonds. And so there was a bond planned for 13. We did a bond in 16. At that time, we thought we would be doing a bond in 19. As we watched the numbers and we watched the numbers change, we pushed that from 19 to 20. We pushed that from 20 to 21. And today that's been pushed to 23. Okay. And so again, 10 years out, we thought we were going to do one in 19. Not so, but we didn't need one. Okay. So I'm going to pass the document out to you real quick, or if y'all will help me. And then we'll just kind of talk about what you see on the document, and then I can take some questions on it, and then we'll do a little bit of feedback on it as well. So while those are coming out, I'll make a couple of more general comments about how do you know when to put that campus, what year that campus needs to open up. And so what we do there is we use our campus capacities. And so we look at the numbers, the projected numbers, and we say we need to reach a certain capacity before we open up that next campus. So it's really twofold. It's the capacities, how close we're getting to the max capacity on that campus, but it is also the ability to put students into the new campus. Okay? So we have to have enough students in the existing campuses that when we open a new campus, that we open that campus up at about 60% capacity, okay? So in the case of an elementary school that's designed at 900, we need to be able to put 600 students in that new campus when it opens in order for it to be fiscally responsible to run that campus. You can't open a 1,000 student campus and put 200 kids in it. Okay, and so it's about capacities, but then it's also about, do we have enough kids to open up that campus? And we've seen examples across the state where they built campuses, and then they couldn't open them financially and then student-wise. So, okay, so what you're looking at there is at the very top, elementary. So the first thing you'll see there is elementary opening up in for the May of 23 bond. There could possibly be an elementary there. And we're looking at that opening up, look at my document, in the fall of 25, okay? So that would be our elementary school number 9. As well in that 23, possibly in that 23 bond, would be the junior high. And you see the junior high would be planned to open up in the fall of 2026. So the difference in the beige bars there, you see the beige bar for the elementary is only 2 years long. The beige bar for the junior high is 3 years long. And the reasons for that is just the design time that it takes and the construction time that it takes to build these campuses. I would tell you that the 27 months that it shows for the elementary, we can actually squeeze that now, because what we've done is we have gone to a prototype model elementary, which really enables us to be a little bit more agile, or actually a lot more agile, in the timing of which we start it and the timing we get to open it up, okay? And so, but the junior high, we've got 39 months for design to opening. That's actually probably pretty tight for a junior high, okay? And then, so if you look down, the renovations, the contingency, the technology, all of that is very loose right now. Okay, those are things that we normally have in our bonds, but as we get closer to those will get very tight as to what actually needs to be in them at those times. As you look out for possibly another bond to be called, you'd see another elementary. I'll just kind of make note right now that 2 elementaries, you saw growth in the northeast quadrant of our district, Sipple and Cibolo Valley, and you see a lot of growth down south by Rose Garden. So, as of today, which one's first? I mean, right now, that's going to be is what we're seeing down south. It's hard to tell, 2 years ago, pretty confident that it's going to be up there in the Homestead in the northeast. But really, with the growth we're seeing down south, that's something that we're going to have to watch really close. Which one comes first? Do we need to pull them closer together because maybe they hit closer together, you know? So, so that's kind of what we're looking at as another elementary. What you don't see a red block for on our 10-year plan now is for high school number 3. And so our previous plan had 10-year, the high school on it. But again, as we look at that 1% growth over the last 3 years, we were able to push that off to the off the 10-year plan. Now we've got planning for it, but again, we're going to watch numbers and when do we start that planning, you know? And until we see, you know, consistent numbers and trends that say now's the time, you know, we'll continue to watch that. So one of the things you can kind of look at, and I'll just give you a number example there. If you look at the high school enrollment in the year 2029, you'll see it at a little over 5,600 students. Our high school capacity is at 6,300 students. So you can see we've really got 600 students, right, below capacity at the high school, even in that year, okay? I'm going to say again, that's 10 years out, and this is the best information we have today, okay? All right, that's all I have on 10-year plan, but I will answer any questions if you have questions. Yes, sir.
So I've seen some land in different places say like that the district was, does that still coincide with where we want that growth to be?
Well, and that's a really good question. We're very strategic about where we try to buy that land. So we do own land up in the northeast corner where a lot of our growth, we see a lot of the 1103 growth. And we do own land down south, down off 1518. And so, you know, as we're looking at as a facilities team, this is another one of those conversations that we get information from Brent. Okay, what are we doing? You know, where do we need to look? We have enough land today to do the 10-year plan we have now. We don't have enough land to go past that 10-year plan with multiple campuses after that. So as a facilities team, that's kind of what we're looking at. Where's the growth? Where do we need to be looking, you know, compared to where our growth is going to prepare for possibly the next people that are standing up here doing this meeting, right? So, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Expand on Steel Stadium.
Okay.
Years 23 and 25.
Sure, good question. And so, and that's why I said the stuff that's not on the campus stuff is very loose right now. The previous plan had consideration for the Steel Stadium in relation to possibly that high school 3. And so there was a lot of conversation around what do we do with the stadium question in our district when high school 3 comes around. So that's a leftover right now. With the high school being pushed off of the 10-year plan, I could say today that that's probably not likely to stay in that renovation category as it stands today. So it's really related to that third high school opening. It wouldn't be a consideration at this point. Yes, ma'am.
So again, this is our best thinking, as JD said, at this time. Prior to going into any type of bond situation, we're going to bring together a community group like this, and we're going to talk about our needs, and we're going to do facility studies, and we're going to look at renovations, and we'll have a lot more of an understanding at that time and the direction that we want to go. And we will be tapping into the community. Me and people in this room will be involved, and then we will take that recommendation to the board, and the board will be involved before we ever call a bond. So all of this is just our, as I said, administration's thinking right now, but we will have a huge process that will involve our community before we ever move forward with when we start circling around towards when we think we're going to need a bond. Does that make sense? Thanks.
High school, or do we want to build a large stadium somewhere out? You know, perhaps a fine arts center as well, something like that. Some school districts have this conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Pivotal, and that is conversation often that we have is paying attention to that, but because we know that's part of the community's questions for us. What else? Yes, sir.
I wonder if we shift from like this fast growth mentality to more of a slower growth, if we need to think more about our standards for, you know, we use portables now to keep them there for, we were only doing it for 3 years or so, but if it's gonna be like 10 years and we have those portables sitting there on that campus, we need to think about maybe, do we really want them in portables that long? If we have the ability to build a school, and all those portables together would equal another elementary school, maybe we think about that.
I think this kind of goes back to what Dr. Ely was saying, is that, you know, that's all part of those planning meetings. And I know that, John, you're on the CAC, and this, you know, we have these kind of conversations in CAC all the time. I'd really love for you to capture that on our feedback form. I think that those are the things that we're going to have to consider with the change from a faster growth district to a, as we see it now, a 1% growth district. We need to look at those things. So I think it's back to the conversation of having that group together of, you know, where is the direction going for our district. Anything else?
School was built for less than $4 million. Still, high school was built for $35 million. Times changed, Steve. The value of a dollar today is so much greater than the value of a dollar 10 years from now. And you just have to take advantage of those times and opportunities. Each tries to, you have to be able to do it. A lot of questions have to be answered first.
Okay, so we're going to do the same drill that we did with the other presentations during the night. There should be a SWOT analysis for the 10-year facility master plan. And so again, if you'll find those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Thank you.
I've heard this before. Yeah.
Give you about one more minute, about one more. Okay, if you'll continue finishing up your thoughts on the feedback, don't stop writing if you're still working on it. But we're going to kind of try to kind of bring things to a close. Want to show you on the website. So if you get home later next week and you want to come back and look at this information, I know we gave you abbreviated copies of some of the things that we showed you. But we have the full presentations and things like that that we'll have online. So if you are at our homepage, for the school district homepage, and you go to Departments and Facility Planning and Development, click on that department, and then you come over to Community Advisory Committee. When you click on Community Advisory Committee, there's a two good-looking guys up there, Mr. Pivotal. And then what you'll see on that CAC page is the Combined Community Advisory Committee. So I've already dropped the agenda for tonight on there, and what we will work on tomorrow and early next week is dropping all of tonight's presentations in that same spot. So we'll have all of that available. So if you are watching at home as well and you want to see these, that's where you can find them. So again, go to Departments, Facility Planning and Development, and then it's the CAC. So I will make mention that the regular tab on there is the Community Advisory Committee. I know that on the sign-in sheet tonight, there was an opportunity for you to mark if you were interested in participating in the CAC. So if you really, really enjoyed yourself tonight and you loved all of the information, we'd love to have you on a regular basis, not a once a year. So our CAC does meet once a month. The calendars and all of that is on that webpage there. So if you said yes on there, we'll get you on our email list and we'll start sending those invites to you and inviting you back monthly. What else did I have before I wrap up here? Sign-in sheet, email, website. Okay, so the last thing I have is there's 2 plates of cookies over there. And so don't get up and run because I want to let Dr. Ely close us out, but please grab a cookie before you go out the door.
Thanks, JD. I'll just be very brief. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for being a part of this process. The information that you've given us this evening is very valuable to us. JD talked about other ways to be able to continue to provide us information. Thank you for your commitment to the school district and the families, citizens, taxpayers, and of course, students of Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City ISD. We really appreciate you and have a great evening.